Yes.
I'd like to call this Monday, March 15, 2021 meeting of the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners to order, and welcome to everyone. At this time, I would like to ask Commissioner Michael Booth if he would lead us in the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lord, we are meeting here this day, and where two or more are gathered in your name, you are among them. So, welcome to Cumberland County. Give us the wisdom to do what is best for all citizens now, and give us the vision to prepare for the future. Be with us in our deliberations and give us insight to lead with integrity. Grant us the humility to seek your will in all matters that come before us. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, County Manager.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This leads us into our public comment period of the meeting. This is an opportunity that the board sets aside time to hear the concerns of the citizens of Cumberland County. The public comment period shall last no longer than 15 minutes. Each speaker will be allotted a maximum of 3 minutes to make their remarks. No time may be yielded to another speaker. We ask that each speaker, as they come to the podium, please address the board by providing their name and their address. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Madam Clerk, are there any speakers?
Chairman Evans and Commissioners, we have 3 speakers signed up this evening. Our first speaker is Ms. Kate Smith.
Ms. Kate Smith. Okay.
Our second speaker signed up is Kathy Greggs.
Ms. Kathy Greggs. Thank you.
And our third and final speaker signed up is Reverend Floyd Wicker.
Reverend Floyd Wicker. Welcome. Right here to the podium, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
First, let me say thank you for your service to the people of Cumberland County. I'm Floyd Wicker. My address is 1410 Habersham Drive, Fayetteville, North Carolina. Again, first let me say thank you all for your service to the people of Cumberland County. I'd also like to thank you for the opportunity to speak at tonight's public meeting. I requested to speak for 2 reasons. One of which is to ask if this Board of Commissioners has a plan or a vision to address what has taken place and what continues to take place all over this country, to include Cumberland County. Racial injustice. Given all of the racially charged incidents, racial discrimination, political disharmony that we've experienced in this nation over the past year, given COVID-19, which has revealed gross disparities in our healthcare system and has had a disproportionate effect upon black and brown people as a whole, given the public murder of George Floyd, who was born right here in Cumberland County, and the Black Lives Matter protest that happened right here in our city and all across the nation, given the irresponsible, unhinged, wildly dangerous political rhetoric of the 2020 election cycle, which found its breaking point in the brutal attack upon our democracy on January the 6th on our nation's capital. In all of these events, the issue of race, racism, supremacy, and power have been a root cause. These incidents don't just impact blacks, which make up 45% of this county's citizenry. It impacts every citizen in some shape, form, or fashion. My job is not to tell you all what to do, but I do believe a proposal a statement, a resolution from this commission sharing your stance would be a great way to cast vision from this commission. Sharing your stance would be a great way to cast vision for the citizens of Cumberland County as it relates to how we will move forward as a county and as a nation to heal. In August, I wrote an article in the Fayetteville Observer about an amazing holiday known as Juneteenth. Juneteenth celebrates the official ending of slavery in America, in the United States. Before we embark upon another major undertaking, whether it's a convention center, a Civil War museum, or whatever brings the most financial gain to the coffers of this county, my request is that you consider making Juneteenth a paid holiday for county employees. It would be a great first step in letting the citizens of Cumberland County know that its commissioners do, in fact, believe that slavery was wrong and that racism and discrimination of any kind is also wrong. Thank you for your time.
Dr. Woodson, thank you for coming. Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. Item number 1 is the approval of the agenda.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, before we move into the presentation phase of our agenda, we have introduction this evening. We would like to introduce our new county engineer, if with your pleasure.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I'm going to ask Tracy Jackson to come forward and introduce Jermaine Walker.
Welcome, Mr. Jackson.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners.
Good evening.
I'm proud and honored to introduce to you our new county engineer, Mr. Jermaine Walker, retired Lieutenant Colonel from the U.S. Army, comes to us after a distinguished and accomplished career in the Army. He is a resident of Fayetteville. He has 20-plus years of engineering, construction, and project management experience at locations in the U.S. and overseas. And he has a Bachelor of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering, a Master of Public Administration degree, and is in the process of completing his doctorate in Business Administration. Tonight, I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Jermaine Walker.
Welcome, sir.
Good evening to everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I would like to thank the commissioners, the county manager, for this outstanding opportunity to be able to serve the citizens of Cumberland County, and I look forward to working with all of you, to be able to continue to provide excellent customer service to our citizens.
Well, sir, we welcome you, and I'm sure that you have found a great home here.
Yes, sir.
We have a great team, and you will enjoy working with each and every one of us here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
That brings us to item 2A. At the agenda session last week, we provided some information about the Community-Based Virtual Learning Center. And I have asked Mr. Andrew Jakubiak, who's our Budget and Management Analyst, as the board instructed, this information was to be presented this evening.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Here we are. Here we go. Sorry about that. Good evening, Mr. Chair and Board. My name is Andrew Jakubiak. I'm a budget management analyst here. And I wanted to give a very brief update on our community virtual learning centers. So as a background, we had 11 responses to our RFP. 9 organizations were selected to receive funding. Of these organizations, 130 students are currently being served. Funding will continue until June 30th of 2021, while there's still a virtual learning option in Cumberland County Schools. And so this is the participation breakdown. As you can see, those are our 9 organizations with the amount of current participants funded. So if there's any questions, I'm here to answer.
Are there any comments or questions? Yes, sir, Commissioner Booth.
Just very quickly, thank you, Mr. Chair. The participation breakdown on that graph right there, it looks like that you can max out at 53.3, is that right?
53.3.
because YMCA Sand Hills had 18 participants. Cross Kids After School had 40 or 55, depending on which category you look at as far as requested, and they both got the same amount of money. So it's apparently not per person or per
Right.
student or something.
The YMCA provides much more students than what we are providing. They have a much more robust.
Okay, so you look at each application?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
very good, very good, thank you.
Any more questions or comments?
Question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
The $250,000 that we allocated, the board was, I thought they were very forward-thinking in doing that. Will that handle us currently until the end of June?
Yes, Mr. Keefe, I do believe that will stretch us there. We have it broken into monthly reimbursement payments for each organization.
Okay. And is there are you aware, Andrew, of any waiting list or anything, or are all the children being serviced that have been requested?
I'm not personally aware of any waiting lists within our organizations. As you can see, some provide only a handful, and some, like the YMCA, have a very robust program.
Yeah.
And we've tried to spread these around the county for maximum, I guess, absorption of children when
Okay.
they need.
Well, Andrew, thank you for your information.
Absolutely.
Get ready for budget.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Any more questions or comments? Sir, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. Item number 2 is a presentation by Mr. Robert Van Giens, the FCEDC President and CEO.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Let's see if, Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for this opportunity. I believe we've had just some general conversations, and there was a desire for an update on some of the projects we've been working on the Economic Development Commission recently, the corporation, but also where do we stand on some of the projects that we started a while back? We make headlines with an announcement, we approve an incentive, a project gets started, COVID happens, life happens, and sometimes it's a while before we come back. If I may, this is a video that's on our website here, and hopefully we will be lucky, and it does. Your IT team did a great job. There's not a lot of audio in this. Here is a fast-paced overview, but then we're also going to go into some detailed discussion on some of these projects. So in addition to the projects we've been working coming out of the recession, we have an updated number in here. We've worked with companies to put nearly 2,500 people back to work here in Cumberland County. In response, working with small businesses and our community partners, we developed both a 10-point community-wide recovery plan and an opportunity zone prospectus. Around the airport, recognizing its economic development potential, we've been working to develop an airport economic development strategy for that corridor in and around the FAY airport. Many of you helped us launch, Vice Chair Adams, I know you participated in those. We've created, to build on our international development relations, a global Special Forces Communities of Excellence, linking with Special Forces Centers in allied nations around the world. And I think we all saw the launch of the Can Do Carolina brand, which wouldn't have been possible without the county support and the TDAs as well. We've rebranded our website and redeveloped it in accordance, where we're seeing quite a large surge in inquiries for product and property. And I think that can be tied to our revamped social media and branding. Some of the projects that you've been part of, the launch of Metronet's $70 million fiber optic network covering Fayetteville, the municipalities, and almost all of Cumberland County. You can see here, we were able to generate a sizable amount of press, and good press, by being their first investment here in the Carolinas. It's an aerial shot of Campbell Soup's 700,000 square foot distribution center built in Uceda Creek Park, and that's where it stands as of a few months ago. Danson's, 118 jobs announced. We'll go into exactly where they are today in that investment. This is where Booz Allen Hamilton is currently located with 250 jobs announced. They've actually exceeded that number. E&G, think you were all able to join us, or most of you were able to join us that day for the ribbon cutting. That is a supplier to the military electronic news gathering vehicles. Filling out the 107 Tom Starling, where parts of that have sat vacant for many, many years. WePack Logistics, who serves Campbell Soup, located, took 208,000 square feet down. eClerks, one of the first projects I was happy to work on, privileged to work on here in Cumberland County. We started with 40, we're at over 250, and we've been as high as 300 there. We did have a little pullback with COVID, having people in a call center, we have to be careful first. And then you worked with us in Cambridge Lee, which is 26 jobs. And you can see here, filling out 107 Tom Starling, expansion of Kiko and Land Air. And so just a quick snapshot of what's coming next. This is actually under roof. If you have a chance to drive down Corporation Drive, you'll see we have the 200,000 square foot spec building, all built with private sector dollars. But important to that was the county's securing a $2 million grant to run a sewer line along Interstate 95, which will open up a few million square feet of new development on the adjoining parcels. So coming out of COVID-19, we are still seeing those impacts. We've had a number of employers, especially in manufacturing, distribution, our military contractors, increase employment. But you can see here, and it's hard to see, and I'll be happy to share this, the link to this with you. But you can see in the graph pretty clearly that we are still about 7,000 jobs short of a full recovery for the number of people employed. Unemployment, underemployed, all those things mean different things at different times, but if you count the number of people employed, I find that is the strongest measure of a community's economic health. What you'll see though on the left, and there's a short change here, a mild change here, you'll see though when we look at those that are initial claimants as of January, and all these numbers lag a few months behind, this is our initial claimants, but these are our continuing claimants. And you will see actually that these numbers move a little bit further into professional services. They also skew towards our African American community, having a longer extent of being out of work after losing it with COVID. It falls heavily between that 25 to 35 range, and you can see that women are impacted more so than men. This is just some data I think we all need to be aware of who has been hit the hardest, and maybe I would say has felt those impacts the longest here in our community. And you can tie that back into perhaps where we work. On the top is where we work, on the bottom is what we do. And we are a very heavily enhanced, if you will, make it a positive, retail, customer service. It's a bigger part of our economy than a lot of other places, and that's often a great thing for us. It's consistent, it keeps dollars local, but in times like COVID, where you are not allowed to have those establishments open, and again, these are January numbers I just showed you, you can see that's where you can understand why we're hit so hard in some of those. But what we have also found, though, is that technology access and affordability and adoption is a big impact on people's lives right now, being able to telecommute, being able to work jobs remotely. Also that we're facing challenges still coming out of this with childcare, housing. How do you do virtual learning while a parent's working if you can't afford childcare or it's not available to you? But on a positive, we'll show again later that industrial vacancy has dropped more than 60% in the last 36 months, and our housing market is incredibly strong, very close to the top in the nation right now. So these are some of the companies we've been working with. These are companies, some new, some longstanding. Many of these, almost all of these, at one point or another, are companies that partnered with you or the city and the county to do an economic development project. Anita Gelatin was a few years back, Walmart's distribution center, and the names we've talked about today. But 14,000 jobs added back since the since our low point in April of 2020. So, with regards to your incentive-supported projects, and I'm going to start with the ones that have the most traditional incentives, either a tax, either a grant that is an incentive to them, or it's based on job performance. But important to remember, all are performance-based. They have to perform before they can get paid. They are paid only if the terms are met and maintained. And I think important to note, and you'll see on some of these, you've approved a number of incentives during my 3.5, 4 years here, but a lot of them aren't even eligible for the first payment yet. So in some ways, it's a, if you will, a cushion for the county that they create it, they build it, it's assessed, it's billed, it's paid, and only then, after all that time has passed, depending on the calendar year cycles, are they eligible for a payment after they paid their taxes. And we do require continuous performance. If you don't meet it this year, you don't keep getting it. So you did just approve an incentive for Cargill. That one, there's 70 jobs retained with an average wage of $70,000. And to that point, assuming the project moves forward and all things are done correctly, they won't be eligible for the first payment until calendar year 2023. Danson's, $27 million investment, 118 full-time jobs announced, and that was last year. They have a current employment of around 40. They're adding jobs as we speak. Average wage, $38,000. You've approved a job creation grant of $175,000. We anticipate the first partial payment based on what they've achieved next fiscal year. They've not received anything as of yet, but they're in there, they're operating, and they're employing. ENG, similar. This was a grant, a job creation grant. Apologize, I did not put that number on there. But it's 60 jobs announced. They're currently at 19. They too will be eligible for their first payment next year. I believe we had them come in 2019, right before then. So we've gotten a good couple of years out of them. The building's been remodeled, and they are up and running, and you can see there. Booz Allen Hamilton, they committed to a $5 million investment. They announced 208 jobs. They currently employ 250 with an average wage of $64,000. The construction project with COVID, like so many other offices, are on hold. As such, it's great that they're here. We're happy they are. We're happy that they're looking at what they do next. But there's no county incentive payments pending at this time because they haven't built a new office here, and that would go into the part of their overall package. They do have an incentive agreement with the state, separate from the county, that is based only on job creation because that is how the state measures its. For us, it's taxable impact, jobs created, and their overall investment. Campbell Soup, one of the earlier projects that I had the privilege of working on with you, 140 jobs announced, currently employing 215, so well above that number. A $44.6 million investment. I believe my last check on their numbers is $35 million is in. They are proposing to add additional equipment and scales that are going through permitting now, very large scales. One's large enough to hold me. And that was supposed to. Thank you. I got a little laugh or two.
I lost my weight, so I'm good.
Their first incentive payment would be pending later on this fiscal year. And I think just important to note that between the land sales and the taxes paid to date through the construction period, I believe it comes in around $1.8 million in revenue, plus the wages they've paid to their employees. And so when it comes time to pay that incentive, it'll be more than offset by those revenues, and those will be each year going forward. So those are traditional incentive projects, job creation grant, a tax-based grant looking at how the investment in the community along with the jobs. But we support projects in other ways. You've approved grants. These grants can have a risk factor to the county, sometimes requiring you to take a second or third position on a property. And if the company doesn't perform and you had paid the money, conceivably, you would have to take recourse. We try to do things in a way that doesn't open you up to that. This is a good example here, and we'll talk about another one here. The company made their investment. They created the jobs, promised 19, created 26, were cleared by the state. The county then provided them the funds from the grant. It was great because they were willing to work with us and wait, so you had literally no risk in that sense on that. So there's a good example of us using a grant to support a project. Kinlaws. The city actually did this grant, but all these projects are in the county, so worth mentioning. Another example, they've been facing some expansion issues. They created 11 jobs. We were able to get them a $100,000 grant to remedy some situations they had with overcrowding out there, and similarly, they've cleared the process, and are free to go. ACLC, great company here, advanced technology company here in downtown Fayetteville. They received both a 1NC grant and a building reuse grant. They actually have, government contracting can be a tough and pretty brutal world out there. They've won some. There's been sequestration. There's been protests on bids, and they're optimistic that they will be able to reach their job numbers. But since they have not gotten there yet, there have not been funds provided from the reuse grant. There have not been funds from the 1NC. So we're going to continue to help them every way we can. But I think this is a good example of performance has to come first, and we want to mitigate risk to the community on these grants. E-clerks, we weren't able to qualify them for state grants for the job creation, but we were able to qualify them for training grants from the community college system, and that is a project. We announced 40, then we added 150 and cut a ribbon, then we added another 150 on top of that, growing them across this building. And again, this is an international headquartered company who chose Fayetteville and Cumberland County for their first U.S. operations location. And again, 300 jobs there on the best days, 250 during COVID. Metronet, a project here that didn't have any direct incentives, but very important to our community, and a lot of work went into that by everyone involved. $70 million investment, 50 permanent jobs, 200 construction jobs. And here was expedited permitting and agreements with the city and with PwC to make that happen. So I think it's important to note that not always does it take a cash incentive to get a project done. In this case, for WEPAC, for example, we worked with the building owner, convinced them if they made an improvement, the building would be more marketable. We added truck docks. We got 208,000 square feet leased, created roughly 25 jobs in trucking and working in the warehouse. They serve Campbell's Soup, so that was their powerful motivator. So by winning one project, we were competitive to win a second one. And these last three, I think, are important to note because this is where the quality of the staff at your Economic Development Commission really come to bear for the good, and the quality of your team, especially here in the county in your permitting side, LeBlue being a great example on this. Each of these, Horn Brothers Construction, the expansion of KECO, and the Blue Water, revolved around the ability of staff to act quickly, to be pro-business, and to work people through a process. HBC was us working and advocating to get a zoning change needed to allow them to move 400 jobs here. KECO, it was an existing industry and a potential buyer of a building. We all know that when a new buyer comes in, things don't always go positive. In the end, for the long term, we were able to connect a good party on each side, make something happen, and we grew that by 50 jobs, I think 128,000 square feet. And LeBlue, the company wanted to invest in a new production line. They were in another community who I won't name. It sat around for a couple of months. They couldn't get anywhere. And this was Kathy Johnson, our team, and your permitting team here at the county. I had an appointment backing up. It took me 12 minutes before the start of that meeting. They knew I was going to be late, and I caught them on the steps coming out because we were able to do with your team in 12 to 15 minutes what couldn't be done 2.5 months somewhere else to get something done, and that's why that project is happening here and those jobs are being created. So with that said, that's about 1,200 jobs in these projects alone, not counting the 2,500 we've been working with those existing industry on. So we've seen some very positive things in those segments of our economy. Last thing I wanted to talk about, though, is something we have been discussing recently a lot, and that is product and availability. With your help, $2.4 million sewer grant funded by the county, grant that you were able to get, and PwC providing funds for that to get us all the way there. We have been working with the municipalities, PwC, and other utility providers to say what is next, because right now we have over 400 acres of public and private land under either option or contract for sale, and that would bring roughly 2 million square feet or more of new industrial space to market and over $10 million worth of land sales. You can see the little graph coming down. That is your industrial vacancy rate as a percentage over the last 3 years. And you can see towards the bottom there that we are down to 6.8%, which is just a tad above the national. That's 4 points down from a year ago. The only item you see on red on the bottom is that is a decrease in the amount of space filled compared to the amount of space filled last year. It's not a negative. It's not more vacancy. It's last year we did 688,000. This year, the following year, 549,000 square feet. We are out of square feet to fill. And so if we don't get more up, that number will go down because it just won't be there to take advantage of. And so with that, I'm happy to take any questions you have. I hope that was what you were looking for and beneficial.
Are there any questions or comments from the board?
You got one over here, Mr. Chair.
Just briefly, if you did this well during COVID, I can't wait to see what happens next year.
26 projects in since January 1st.
That's what I'm saying. I can't wait. It's just going to be amazing.
We've achieved 50%
You set the
of our
bar.
goal.
You set the bar for your run around the track a little high here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Booth. Is there any other comments or questions from the board? If not, thank you very much, sir, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. Item number 3 is your consent agenda.
Is there any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, before we move to the public hearings, I believe you wanted to specifically have someone read the proclamations 3B that was created and approved tonight by this board, approval of proclamation recognizing and commending COVID-19 workers and volunteers, as well as item 3C that was created and approved by the board this evening, approval of a proclamation recognizing March 2021 as Women's History Month.
And at this time, I would like to recognize Commissioner Stewart for the proclamation regarding COVID. Commissioner Stewart.
Good evening. I would read the proclamation, and it reads, whereas individuals, both career and volunteer, including those providing health care services and first responders, such as law enforcement personnel, firefighters, paramedics, and many others, have served the Cumberland County community diligently during the course of the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, these individuals have been on the front lines in the ongoing effort to keep our community safe from the wide-ranging and devastating effects of the virus. They have worked overtime, been away from their families, and in some cases have put their own health and lives in jeopardy. And whereas the families of these individuals have also made significant sacrifices to support the service of their loved ones and have lived with the reality that their family members have risked their personal health to execute their respective duties and serve as volunteers during the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas, while going the extra mile and giving their all, these individuals have been critical to our community's response to the COVID-19 pandemic and protected so many from the devastating effects of this virus. Now, therefore, we, the Board of Commissioners of Cumberland County, do hereby recognize and commend these individuals for their significant work and sacrifices, and are especially grateful for their service to the citizens of Cumberland County under these most difficult circumstances. This will be adopted this 15th day of March 2021 and signed by Chairman Charles Evans.
Thank you, Commissioner Stewart. And at this time, I'd like to present a proclamation on recognizing March 2021 as Women's History Month. I would also like to recognize our fellow colleagues, Dr. Jeanette Council, as well as Dr. Stewart, and for their leadership, and as well as all the women that's part of the Cumberland County family. We thank you. Whereas American women of every race, class, and ethnic background have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of our nation in countless recorded and unrecorded ways, and whereas American women have played and continue to play critical economic, cultural, and social roles in every sphere of the life of the nation by constituting a significant portion of the labor force working inside and outside of the home, and whereas women take part in the world of work, they also continue to embrace and nurture the family as they have always done, and all Americans can be truly grateful for the role of women as the heart of the family and for their every accomplishment today and throughout our history. And whereas American women were particularly important in the establishment of early charitable, philanthropic, and cultural institutions in our nation and served as early leaders in the forefront of every major progressive and social change movement. And whereas countless American women have served our country courageously in the military, and whereas American women have been leaders not only in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the abolitionist movement, the emancipation movement, and the industrial labor movement, the civil rights movement, the peace movement, which created a more fair and just society for all. And whereas, despite these contributions, the role of the American woman is, in history, has been consistently overlooked and undervalued in the literature, teaching, and study of American history. Now, therefore, we, the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim March 2021 as Women's History Month in Cumberland County and call upon all citizens to mark this month with appropriate observances to honor the achievements of women. Adopted this 15th day of March 2021, signed by Charles E. Evans, Chairman of the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners. Women, we thank you.
That deserves an applause.
Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That will now move us to item 4, which are our public hearings. We have 4 uncontested rezoning cases. I'll call on Mr. Rawls Howard to present the cases.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. I hope you are. Thank you. First case we have on uncontested is case P2108. As you can see, this is somewhat in the Hope Mills area, or the southeastern area of Fayetteville, as you can see by the highlighted star on the map. The request is to go from MP industrial to C2P, which is our moderate intensity commercial district, for the highlighted area that you can see here. So it's along MLK Freeway. The parcel itself is one parcel, but it's split by a number of right-of-ways that you can see here. There's Tyson Marine Road that is here, but the request is really more centered around this parcel here. I believe the applicant was looking at doing some commercial type of operation here. This area is kind of unique in that it splits the Coliseum area and the airport overlay, but overall, going to a commercial district, we didn't have an issue with it. We felt it was plan compliant, so staff had recommended it. We took it to the planning board. They supported that by a 10-0 vote. I'll be glad to open up the presentation if you have any other questions, but we think it's pretty straightforward.
Any questions? Open the public hearing. Are there any speakers?
There are no speakers.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Close the public hearing.
Clerk. Oh, excuse me? That was the clerk.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Madam
She understood. You
Um,
elevated that. There you go.
Are there any questions or discussions? If not, call for a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
in the case of
Commissioner Key.
P21-08, I move to approve the rezoning request from MP Planned Industrial to C2P Planned Service and Retail and find the request consistent with the South Central Land Use Plan of 2015, a designation of an airport-oriented uses and Coliseum development. The airport-oriented uses designation is meant to protect the airport from unwanted encroachment, protect human life, and allow for further expansion. The Coliseum development designation is intended in an area that is immediately around the Crown Coliseum complex. Uses allowed in this area include any use that is compatible, compliant, and enhances the Crown Coliseum complex. Approval of this request is reasonable and in the public interest, as the district requested is in harmony with surrounding existing land uses and the parcel has access to public water.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Unanimous.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank
We'll go on
you.
to P2110. So for this case is another uncontested case sitting out toward the border, I guess, of Sampson County that you can see here. It's off of Clinton Road. You can see highlighted by the star in our far eastern area of Cumberland County. So this is really somewhat of a cleanup amendment. You have a property owner out there that had a request to go from CP to A1, Mr. Terry Faircloth. So essentially you're looking at this very uniquely configured property that's highlighted in red. It would zone CP. There's a number of split zonings on here. The property owner actually has a house that sits on this large piece of land here. The request is simply just to clean up and put all of it into A1 so he can tie this piece of property here to his property back in here. There is a somewhat of a small little car dealership that sits right there. That'll stay commercial, but for the most part, he just wanted to clean up split zoning on his property. So we didn't see anything that was too bad with the request. It was plan compliant. We took it to the planning board. They supported it by a 10-0 vote.
Okay. Open the public hearing. Are there any questions or comments?
After you close the public hearing, I'll let them. Finish.
Close the public hearing.
There
Now,
are
there
no
any-
speakers.
Are there any speakers?
No, sir,
No,
there
yes,
are
she
no
heard that with me
speakers.
earlier. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments?
Just to be clear, is this to clear it up or just to go to A1 because it's a lower tax value?
I don't know. I didn't get that specific with the owner.
Just how long has it been sitting out there? I mean, it makes sense from the landowner standpoint, but I think that
Could be.
is as much as anything else. Let's just be honest with where we're going on this in terms of that. But okay, that was just my question.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
farmland, did he?
Huh?
He didn't make it farmland.
Yeah. Look, he should have gone down to farmland.
Are there
That's
any
what
more questions or comments?
If he's gonna go all the way.
If not, let's call for the vote, for the motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll take it. In the case of P 21-10, I move to approve the rezoning request from CP Plan Commercial to A1 Agriculture and find that the request consistent with the Stedman Land Use Plan of 2020 designation as a suburban density residential, as it requires that any lot within the designation be at least 20,000 square feet. Approval of the request is reasonable in the public interest, as the district requested as in harmony with surrounding existing land uses, zoning, and lot sizes.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
All in, let's take the vote. All in favor?
Unanimous?
Thank you. Yes, sir.
All right. Sorry. Moving on to 12. This is just simply a text amendment, Commissioners, that Planning and Parks and Recreation, I, with Michael Gibson, had been working on trying to address how we can be able to smooth and streamline park projects that come through the county. When we looked at the permitted use table, as you can see here, any public park that's allowed in the county has to go through a special use permit process, which can be somewhat of a long process. If you don't know, it can take anywhere from 30 to 60 days to get approval. We looked at comparable counties about doing public parks, and I think we're kind of the anomaly by allowing this by special use permit. When you look at private parks, like private types of things, private endeavors, they're allowed and permitted by right in a number of districts. So for staff, we couldn't, I mean, it didn't make a lot of sense to us why we just allowed everything by special use permit. So what we had talked about and proposed to the planning board is that just for the larger districts that you see here for A1, R40, R40A, all the way down to RR, which is 20,000 square foot lots, these are our large lots that we just say that you could, that the Parks and Rec folks could be able to build a park by right in these larger zoning districts. However, when you get down into the smaller districts, anything less than a half-acre lot for the most part, getting down to 20, 15, and R6, you're starting to get into a lot of neighborhoods there. So we thought maybe we would keep the SUP for those because you're dealing with a lot of people in neighborhoods that might want to come out and have a say-so about what's going on around them, but everything else we didn't have a problem with. We also put it permitted by right in all of our non-residential, as you can see, our commercial districts and our office and institutional. So we took this to the planning board as a sort of a joint effort with Mr. Gibson, and we got a unanimous support for this text amendment as well from the planning board.
Okay, sir. Let's open the public hearing. Are there any speakers?
There are
Madam
no
Clerk?
speakers.
Let's close the public hearing. Are there any questions or discussions? If not, can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, sir.
In case of P 2112, I move to approve the text amendment and find the request consistent with the 2030 Vision Growth Plan goal of emphasizing park and recreation development, and that the respective development be located, designed according to population density and needs of the people residing in the Park Service area. Approval of this text amendment is reasonable in the public interest, as it will provide a more streamlined process for revisions to existing and newly developed park spaces, areas with lots larger lot sizes to encourage the development while keeping the needed higher, I guess, scrutiny in many urban areas.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Unanimous.
All right. Moving right along. 13. Final case I have on the uncontested, as you can see here, still in that area around Cumberland Road off of Hope Mills area, as you can see in the southern part of Fayetteville, in the, I guess, west central area of the county, highlighted by the stars you can see. The applicant is Ms. Lori Epler on behalf of Larry Keenan Associates. The request is to go to MP Plan Industrial to office and planned office and institutional O&I. You can see the highlighted parcel in red that's crosshatched with Natal Street here. You can see this is along Cumberland Road. Coming back into this area here, it's just this small sort of this corner piece of this zone property. When staff took a look at it, we also looked at the plan, whereas it's not compliant with actually the future land use plan. Your vote for approval today would amend the plan. When we looked at it going from an industrial use to an office and institutional use, giving the types of land uses that we have out there already, we didn't think it was unreasonable of a request. So, plus when you look at the future land use map of this area, which I can just bring forward to that, you already have mixed use development on the plan. So what would happen with your vote if you decide to vote on this is just that this black and white crosshatch would just be extended into here, so it's already sitting out there already. So when we took this to the planning board, they supported it by a 10-0 vote as well. So I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any, or go further into the presentation if you would like me to.
Over the public hearing. Are there any speakers, Madam Clerk?
There are no speakers.
Close the public hearing. Are there any questions or discussions? Yes, yes, sir.
When you went back and looked at the history of this, it was zoned, they came and asked for a zoning of MP back in like 75. Do you know why?
In 75?
It was, yeah, in 75.
1975?
That's what it said. I'm reading your stuff. It's your stuff right there.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I
don't know if
I may
y'all
have
do the
overlooked
history
that,
on
I'm
this.
sorry.
I don't know if y'all do the history on this, but I read this. You shouldn't give it to me if you don't want me to read it now.
Well, no, I'm sorry.
But they zoned it that way, and I'm just trying to figure out, what it was back then and why we're going back.
I'm
but
sure.
if you didn't know that, that's okay. That's fine. I'm fine with it.
He knows
Actually,
all
I was
the way
just
back-
barely alive.
He knows all the way back to 21
Listen.
years. In a couple of
You-
months, he'll be back to 25.
You provide me information, I read the information, I just have questions.
Are there any more questions or comments?
That's all I do.
If not, let's call for a motion. I'll take that. I move to approve rezoning from MP, Planned Industrial, to OIP, Planned Office and Institutional, and find A, the approval is an amendment to the adopted current Southwest Cumberland Land Use Plan 2013 map, and that the Board of Commissioners should not require any additional request or application for amendment to the said map for this request. B, the following change in conditions was considered in amending the zoning map to meet the development needs of the community. The parcel meets the location criteria for office and institutional development as defined in the Land Use Policies Plan 2009, and rezoning the parcel to O&IP will make the existing land use conforming, and C, and this rezoning approval is reasonable and in the public interest because the district requested is in harmony with surrounding zoning on the Natal Street corridor and existing land uses. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, the next item, 4E, was listed as a contested rezoning case. The applicant withdrew. However, this item had been listed and publicly advertised as a public hearing, and that's why it's listed on the agenda this evening. However, I do not believe that we have any speakers.
Okay.
We do not. There are no speakers.
So we open the public hearing, close the public hearing. Any questions or comments to this case? If not, thank you so much for being here, sir.
No problem. Thank you.
Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. We have one item of business this evening. It's an item that was moved forward from the agenda session. It's consideration of federal legislative consulting firm. Sally Shutt will present this item.
Good evening.
Good evening, Ms. Shutt.
Is that 3 minutes for her?
John is timing me.
Yeah, the little clock just went 3 minutes in front of you.
All right, John.
2:59.
I'm sorry.
Staff meetings go long, I guess. The county is seeking a company to provide strategic legislative services on its behalf, and the RFP was issued on February 22nd. The results were presented to you at the March 11th agenda session. The Ham Consulting Group was recommended to come before you tonight for consideration. HGC Ham Consulting Group is a firm based in Washington, D.C. It does have ties in North Carolina. It has over 25 years of experience. The team leader is Ron Ham, owner and president. The other two members are Leslie Mazingo and Deborah Bryant. They both serve as federal lobbyists for the city of Fayetteville and Cumberland County and the Chamber from 2005 to 2012 when they were with the Ferguson Group. During that time, they helped the partnership collectively secure $90 million in federal funding. The Ham Consulting Group has quoted $60,000 a year. It would be paid $5,000 a month. They are currently under that same amount contract with the city of Fayetteville and have been since 2019. And they have been the lead in securing congressional and federal agency support for the 2020 HUD Choice Neighborhoods Planning Grant awarded for the transformation of the Murchison Road corridor. And that was one of only 11 awards in the nation. Leslie Mazingo is familiar to you as a federal consultant with the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. She also represents the North Carolina Association of Regional Councils. She's based in North Carolina. Mr. Ham and Ms. Bryant are based and have offices in Washington, D.C. Now, the scope of work includes actively and lobbying Congress and the administration to assist the county in key areas, and those are listed in the agenda, but those would be economic development, environmental quality, health and human services, justice, public safety, school funding, tax and finance policies, water and sewer, workforce development, and any other priorities that the county commissioners would have. So again, I'm bringing before you this recommendation from your agenda session for the Ham Consulting Group for federal legislative consulting services.
Anyway, thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, sir, Commissioner Booth.
Yeah, just, we had a discussion about, was it going to be an annual recurring contract, or 2 years at a time, or 3 years, or what it was? And I might, it might be in there, but I just don't see it.
It would be for 1 year for then review after
Okay.
that.
Well, I would move then that we approve the Ham Consulting Group LLC for federal legislative consulting services for Cumberland County.
Okay, before I accept that motion, is there any more questions or comments? Yes, Commissioner Keefe.
One thing I've learned in government is everything moves very slowly. 1 year, is that enough for them to get serious about us? I mean, what's a typical contract for a consultant? Do you have any idea how long?
Well, it would be, when the RFP was issued, that's how we presented it, that it would be for a year for then review. If you would like to change that.
Well, I just, you know, things move slowly, and things you're working on today may not materialize, and I would hate that we have some things in the and initially I had some concerns about this consulting group, but I have done some research, and I fully support them today. But, you know, just for discussion, and I'll do whatever the board would like to do, but I would think that a 1 year is not much of a commitment to go with them, but whatever way you'd like to go on this, Mr. Chair, I'm going to support it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yes, Commissioner.
And I hear Mr. Keefe, but I think I had a conversation with one of our Angel Lanier, and who's done a whole lot of that with the city and some of the other places. And she said typically it's 1 year. That's why we moved it. We had any questions, we could ask that between now and then. It's typically 1 year. I talked to the mayor. The mayor and I had a conversation, and he says because he would hope that we would go with him because of the military connection, and they're knowing already that they are ahead of the ball game. And I think the 1 year, we can reevaluate them to see if they're going to bring that kind of money. Look, if you're ahead of the ball game and you can do that, then let's see, and then we can always renew on that. So,
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you, sir.
I'll renew my motion again.
I'll second that.
Yes, sir. We've had a motion by Commissioner Booth. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Unanimous.
Thank you, board.
Thank you.
Item 6, Mr. Chairman, are the board's nominations.
I can't talk till you call on me, Mr. Chairman. That was the rule. I remember the rule.
Yes, Commissioner Adams.
Yes, thank you.
And thank you for remembering.
Hey, that was the rule. I tried to abide by.
I
The
appreciate
first
it.
nomination was the Fayetteville Cumberland County Economic Development Board. Mr. Van Giens is back there. Their recommendation is Kevin Farmer. He's on the board and is eligible for reappointment. And after that impressive presentation, I would nominate Kevin Farmer for that.
And I would also like to nominate someone, Harold Lassiter, for the board as well. You're mine.
Fayetteville Cumberland County Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission, Lee Spruill is eligible for reappointment, and I would nominate Lee Spruill for the Parks and Rec.
Okay.
The Joint Planning Board, I would recommend or nominate James Baker. And I think you got Mr. Booth over here.
Yes, Commissioner Booth.
Yes, I'd like to nominate Lori Epler. She served on the board before, came off, and is eligible to be reappointed.
Thank you, sir. Are there any more nominations? Okay.
And
Commissioner
as
Adams.
the Cumberland County Workforce Development Board has 2 vacancies, and they're both eligible for reappointment. Kevin Brooks in the representative business category, and Nanesh Mehta, representative of the business category.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Adams. Is there anything else?
There are no appointments to be made tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Again, thank you, Commissioner Adams. Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. We need to recess the Board of Commissioners meeting to convene the Bragg Estates Water and Sewer District Governing Board.
Thank you, Al. I'd like to recess the Board of Commissioners meeting called to order the Bragg Estates Water and Sewer District Governing Board meeting.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have 2 items on the consent agenda this evening. Item 7A is approval of the minutes from the June 1st, 2020 Bragg Estates Water and Sewer District Governing Board. And then item 7B is the Bragg Estates Sewer options. This was an item that was discussed at the agenda session last week, was just approved on your consent agenda, and then needs to be approved by the Bragg Estates Governing Board.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, sir.
You're
Is
welcome.
there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Been moved and properly second. All in favor?
Unanimous.
Thank you very much. At this time, I would like to adjourn the Bragg Estates Water and Sewer District Governing Board meeting and reconvene the Board of Commissioners meeting. Is there a closed session?
No, sir.
If not, I would like to ask for a motion to adjourn. I love it. I love it. I just,
Move to adjourn. Move to adjourn.
thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Stewart. We are now adjourned. Thank you, Board of Commissioners.